Hi, this is Richard Blade, the voice of the 80s and KROQ Radio, Gay Rock. And you're listening to the voice of 91 Reasons, Jeff Tucker. Totally awesome.
You're listening to 91 Reasons, a journey into the twisted landscape of pop culture. Keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times. And now, the voice, Jeff Tucker.
You know how Goodfellas begins where he goes, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Well, I never wanted to be a gangster, but as far back as I can remember, the first week and a half of September's always been bittersweet for me. What I mean by that is, my birthday is September 10th. But at the same time, that was always the first week of school. In fact, there were some weeks or some years that the first day of school was my birthday. So it's always been a hit or miss for me as far as growing up. And I'm about to hit 47. 47 years old. And I've been thinking about this episode the whole week. Like, what am I going to say? You know, how do you encapsulate anything that is supposed to signify 47 years? The answer is you can't. I mean, you could write a book. I've written some books. I wrote an autobiographical book about Back to the Future. But this is different. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to you. You know, we're just hanging out. I don't drink beer, so it's not like I can pull up a beer, like crack open a cold one, and let's shoot the shit, right? That's not really me, you know. Not that I've ever cared about anybody drinking. Rachel drinks; it doesn't bother me. You'd think the growing up that I had with the drunks that I'd be this huge prohibition. Nobody drinks, and I've never been that way. Like I get that it makes people happy. A lot of people cannot be happy without a little drinky drink, right? And if that's you, that's cool. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Who am I to judge? I never judged anybody. You know, as long as you're not doing anything criminal, I don't care what you do. I've been incredibly tolerant of everybody growing up. I mean, I went to church sometimes 3 times a week. My mother was in the choir and she was church treasurer. So we were there Wednesday or Thursday nights for choir practice for 2 hours. And we were also there for any business meetings as far as her treasurer's duties, plus church on Sunday. And usually church on Sunday went above and beyond. And not that we were overly religious, but my mother was always, for her, church was community. That's how you established yourself in the community, was by going to church and meeting those people. And when I grew up and stopped going to church myself, and I'm not religious at all at this point. I mean, a little bit. I mean, not really. You know? I'm religious like I'm a sports fan in that I watch the Super Bowl. So I've been known to go to church on Christmas Eve. Does that make me religious? Probably not. You know, when you get to the pearly gates and he goes over, it's like, well, there was a big drop-off here, Mr. Tucker. You seemed to go quite a bit when you were younger, but not so much when you were an adult. And the only loss there is all those people that I knew. And going to church every week. Like, I'd never really talked about religion on the show, but like, all those nights going to church, and like, you ever, I'm doing this show freestyle. I don't have any notes. I don't know where I'm really going. I have a couple of ideas. But have you ever been to church when it's not time to go to church? You ever just been in a church? It's a weird place. My sister and I went to church, like I said, a lot. You know, we were in the choir room, the minister's office. There were a couple of restrooms, the narthex, the main hall. There were little rooms off of the main area there. Places where people would get baptized and such. Not that there was a lot of that going on. I went to a Baptist church once where they had a full body baptismal. That was pretty crazy. I even went to a Mormon church where there was a full body baptismal. And that was, I mean, I look at it all as education. But wandering the halls, and the church is the United Methodist Church of Norwalk. And it was a beautiful church made to look like a piece of sheet music that had been rolled up. I'll try to post a picture of it. Like, it was a really striking church, and it was a lot bigger on the inside than it looked on the outside. And we went there my entire childhood. My mother used to bribe me with going to 7-Eleven to get Star Wars cards, or Mapledale Liquor to get Star Wars cards. And I would get like 4 packs because they were 25 cents. And I'd have, what was there, like 8, 9 cards in a pack, plus that chalky stick of gum. And I chewed that gum religiously. Chewed it religiously. But you learn a lot about yourself when you're in a church by yourself. I mean, my sister was there, but we would bring toys. Like, I would pack a little box of Star Wars figures and those mini rig vehicles. You know, I was very into those mini rig vehicles because you could pack them. I couldn't pack an X-Wing or a TIE fighter to go with me, but I could pack the little mini rigs. There was the mini rig that looked like a Mosquito. It was a Imperial vehicle that had fold down wings and like a gun that came out the front. And that was the coolest thing I had. And I would take those to church, and I would play Star Wars figures for hours at church. My mother was also an Eastern Star at the Masonic Lodge. She was the Grand Worthy Matron of the Eastern Star, which again is another religious community group. And we spent a lot of hours at the Masonic Lodge as well, which again is like again being in a church, much bigger though. They had a full stage and multi-purpose room, and they even had a little lounge. Like, it was a really cool swinging place. I've tried to stop there and knock. I want to knock on the door and see if they'll let me take a tour, because I haven't been there in 30 years at least. But I spent a lot of time there growing up. And they had one of those soda machines that sold the Pepsi bottles. Remember the Pepsi bottles? The Pepsi that came in the little bottles they weren't Coke bottles, but they had like a ridge around it, like a swoosh. I swear to God, they had that Pepsi machine in the lobby, and it was 10 cents a bottle. So my mother would go in for her meetings, and she would give me and my sister, a couple of quarters, and we would get some Pepsis, and we would hang out, and I would pack some Star Wars figures. Jennifer would pack her Barbies or her strawberry shortcake dolls, and we were just at the Masonic Lodge for a lot. When I say Grand Worthy Matron, like, that's a big deal. My mother was part of this big initiation ceremony, and she had a gavel that this guy carved for her that I still have, and she would bang the gavel and call meetings to order. Like, it was a big deal. Like it was the stone cutters from The Simpsons, except it wasn't Homer at the front. It was my mom with a big bouffant hairdo, teased to the moon to make her appear 4 or 5 inches taller. And my brother and I have pictures of me and my brother there. We're in our crushed velvet suits, standing there looking uncomfortable, trying to smile, because apparently this is important to my mother. And again, it's one of those things where when I grew up, put it in quotes, when I air quotes, grew up, I never went back and asked my mother, like, what was going on there when you were part of that? I want to say cult, but that's not a fair word. But I know that she wanted me to join. I might have mentioned it on the show once or twice here. My mother wanted me to join Dimalays. The girls joined Rainbow Girls. My mother was a Rainbow Girl her whole life and moved up to Eastern Star. The men joined Dimalay and then become Masons. And you have to have someone to sponsor you. My mother had tons of guys that were going to sponsor me in Dimalays when I was a teenager, and I rejected it. I was one of those, like, what was I going to rebel against? I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I got straight A's, but still as a teenager, you feel like you have this need to rebel against something. So I rebelled against religion. And I told my mother, I can't join Dimalay because to join you have to commit that you believe in Jesus. And at the time, I couldn't do it. I told her, I mean, it must have broke her friggin' heart. She never mentioned it to me as an adult. In the scant years I knew her as an adult. She never mentioned it to me. But looking back, it must have really bothered her that I wouldn't join. Jennifer didn't join Rainbow Girls, and I didn't join Dimalay. So the Eastern Star Masonic thing ended with her. And it was something that she was incredibly proud of. I mean, the picture, she's beaming. So, but you're young. You don't know what you're doing. As you grow older, there's no classes to take. Everything is built on experience. And one of the biggest follies of youth is that we reject the teachings of older people in our family as crazy. Well, how can they know about women and sex and love and relationships? Look at them. And we reject everything that they have to say to our own peril. The folly of youth is that they reject the teachings of those who were here before us. And it's not until the switch turns on at 28 or 29 that you go, oh, not only were my parents people, but they might have known a thing or two as well. And it's too late by then. For me, it was really too late because by 25, both of my parents were gone. So I never got to have that adult conversation. And a lot of people don't. A lot of people aggressively avoid it. They aggressively avoid having any kind of deep, meaningful conversations with their parents. And I have to ask why. You have a fountain of knowledge right there and you reject it. You're too good for it. Or you have too much pride. My mom died the day after Christmas, 1996. After that, we went to a lot of funerals. My mom died. My sister's dad died. There were a couple other deaths in the family. And at each one, I had to speak. And you don't record funerals. It's not done. But at my mom's funeral, I got up and everyone was terrified that I was going to say something awful about Don Berg and the mess that my mother had left us in. And instead, I just said, I can't do it. I said, did my mother have villains in her life? Yes, she did. But we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to give them the floor at all. And they summed up my mother this way. I said, she was the kind of person that if you kicked her or hit her, she would go get ice to mend your wound. And afterwards, the minister came up to me and asked if I'd had the calling. Did I want to become a minister at a church? Would I go to the seminary or wherever Methodists go? Would I learn? And I said, it's not for me. And he looked for a really long moment. He had that same look in his eye that my mom had when I told her I wouldn't join Demolay or Masonic Lodge, of just lost opportunity. But it wasn't for me. I'm a preacher of sorts on this show, aren't I? I don't consider you guys my flock. It's not that kind of relationship. Like I said, we're just talking. But I know in some part of me, I probably could have been a great minister. I could have helped a lot of people. And I wonder if, everybody goes through a midlife crisis, and I'm not going through a midlife crisis. Thankfully, I've already had that. I already had my midlife crisis. Long before 91 Reasons, I had a midlife crisis. But you always ask yourself, did you make the right choice? It's not like the Choose Your Own Adventure book where when you die at the pirate's hand, you can just flip a few pages back and choose not to get on the boat. It's not like that. Life isn't like that. I'm incredibly happy with the choices that I've made in all aspects of my life. I've pushed myself. This show is pushing myself. I'm actually on a couple days off after working 7 in a row for that haunt announcement event, and I'm completely dead on my feet. And I've enjoyed this Jack Ryan show that's on Amazon Prime starring John Krasinski, and I'm really enjoying it. And I could have sat and watched another episode and said, no, I have to go do a 91 Reasons show. That's the drive in me. It'd be easy not to. It'd be easy not to sit, because I'm sitting in a hot room. I can't have the air on when I do the show. It's hot as blazes still. It's California. The weather, I know everybody's, the weather's so great. The weather sucks here, man. You get 3 or 4 cold days, 1 or 2 rainy days, and the rest of the time it's hot. And that's just the way it is. But I sit here and I do this show because of the drive, because I have pushed myself, and I see friends of mine that have pushed themselves to do the right thing. I see Joey Bryan on Facebook doing live shows every day, man. I just hung out with Rick West, who pushed himself and his team to get Midsummer Scream. That's a huge event to put together. I can't even fathom all the work that goes into it. And you just push and push, and you make it happen. You get so proud of the people that I see my boss at work, Ken, pushing himself. He never goes home. I go into his office sometimes and I go, did you go home last night? He doesn't answer. And I wonder. But that's drive, man. That's drive. Ken told me the other day, and he's mentioned it before, the time for squabbling and fights is over. Let's just make some cool shit. I want to put that on a shirt. Because that goes for all of life. All the pettiness, all the nonsense. You go on social media and it's just a cacophony of nonsense, of people upset about football players and sports shoes and the president and this and that, and it's just blah, because it's just a time waster. It doesn't contribute anything creative, and I just want to make cool shit. How about that? That's all I want. What have I done today? I'm watching this show on Amazon, and it takes a lot to get me to sit idle that long, because I get antsy. I'm working on 2 different novels right now. I'm working on creative projects at work that I'm incredibly proud of. The drive, man. It's weird too, because it's a drive. It's a drive I didn't have when I was younger. I could have written novels in high school. I wrote short stories because it didn't take as much effort. The longest story I wrote in high school was almost 100 pages. Business as usual was almost 100 pages. That was the biggest thing I had ever written at that time. That took drive. It's easy just to go, well, let's just do My Fair Lady. Let's just do Pygmalion. But you get that drive. And people who aren't creative have no concept of what I'm talking about. People who are just consumers, who don't produce anything, have no idea. And there are times I wish I could be that person. I wish I could be that, for lack of a better word, normal. But I'm not normal. I'm not. Not in any way, shape, or form. Well, my phone is blowing up. I don't know what's going on. Who knows? Who cares? Anyways, I turned 47 this next week. 47. And when I talked about... There was a show I did about my brother. And I did some math. Like, I was born in 71. But I don't have any conscious memories until 75, 76, going to school. I can remember going to Disneyland at 4. Whether it's real or not, I don't know. Because, your brain sometimes will look at a picture and fashion a memory that's not, really there in your brain. They've done studies on it. I have pictures of me at Disneyland at 4. I have pictures of me at the Japanese Deer Garden at about 3, but I have no memory of that. I remember going to school. I remember very vividly the first day of school, kindergarten. We had 2 teachers for kindergarten. Mrs. Hagar and Mrs. Combs were our teachers. But I don't remember a birthday until probably 77. And that was, there's a series of pictures I have of my mother threw a gigantic pirate-themed birthday party with a treasure chest and a parrot that was a piñata. And every kid had an eye patch and a hat. And for her at the time, it must have been really expensive. And so everybody was there. All her friends' kids were there. There were kids from school there. In the pictures, everybody looks ecstatic and happy. Now remember, this is 77, so even though Star Wars has come out, I don't know if there are any Star Wars birthday products. Because it's not until 78 that I have my first Star Wars birthday party.
Wrap it up, fuzzball.
We've talked on the show before about how Star Wars was all-encompassing, but it really is something to say. Like, once Star Wars came out, that's all I thought about. I liked Battlestar Galactica. I was not into Star Trek until much later. It took me to get smart to like Star Trek, because Star Trek is smart TV. But Star Wars was it, man. I was a Star Wars generation kid, and the birthday had to be Star Wars. We went to the party store that year. I got a Stormtrooper mask, a plastic one, a C-3PO mask that they were on. I have a picture, and yes, I have the pictures, but I also remember being at that party, seeing the masks were on these styrofoam heads, and knowing that after the party, I was going to get those masks. The presents were going to be great, and they were all Star Wars, but that was going to be something. Although, they did have that knockoff Star Wars line by, I think Remco made them. There was a fake 3PO, a fake R2, and a fake Darth Vader. Everybody got these for Christmas or birthday, because if Grandma or Aunt Petunia went to the store, you couldn't tell the difference back in the day, and everybody bought these. So we had these. My mother enlisted her friend Connie Fox, to make the cake, because she made cakes. And so she made a sheet cake, and it had R2 and 3PO on it out of rice paper. Do you remember when these? I mean, it's so weird to think, because now cakes are like, they laser print, it comes off a printer, or it's printed right on these edible sheets of something, right? But in 1978, you had to draw on rice paper with something, I don't know, food coloring or pencils or something, and then you laid it on the cake. And I remember I was the only kid, like, you could stick Star Wars figures on the cake, but that's lame. That's lame. My mother went to the trouble to have this thing made, and I just remember, like, it's the greatest cake on the planet, and it's my cake, and we're going to cut C-3PO and R2, and we're going to eat it's a big deal. I look so happy in these pictures at my first Star Wars birthday party. That's pretty badass, right? I had a Star Wars birthday 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, and 83. All the way through Return of the Jedi. All the way till 12. My mother bought the centerpiece that went on the table, the tablecloth, the plates. And I know this because somewhere in a box, I still have some of this stuff. We saved one of everything. The cup, the plate, you name it. I had Return of the Jedi wallpaper. Star Wars was every single part of my life. I brushed my teeth with a Darth Vader toothbrush. I ate my cereal out of a Star Wars bowl. I ate Pepperidge Farm Star Wars cookies. And that just became the way me and my friends connected, was through Star Wars. But then, life changes and you get older. And I remember at age 13 telling my mom I didn't want to party. The parties are over. I'm a teenager now. So maybe we should just go out to dinner and I'll be 13. That's weird, right? I don't know how much. We've had birthdays for my kids long after. All the way up until 17, 18, 19. But I remember the conscious effort of going to my mother and saying, at 13, I'm done with parties. I don't want to have a birthday party anymore. And that was typical through high school. There was no parties. I remember probably age 14 or 15, probably 14. By then we got a beta VCR, and I said, for my birthday, there's no party. I'll just have a couple of friends over. We'll go to Video Depot and rent 5 or 6 movies, and we'll just watch movies all night. That became the pseudo birthday party. I don't think, hard to describe to people today how unbelievable that was, to be able to rent a stack of movies that you wanted, to go home with your friends, a 2-liter of Springfield soda, and just watch the movies you want to watch all night. That you'd never been able to do that before. That option was never available before. That sort of freedom. And then I'll skip forward because I don't remember anything. Nothing special. Birthdays weren't special. I knew that when I turned 18, it was like a big deal. But I didn't have a party. No party at 18. I had a cake at a friend's house. A friend's mother baked me a cake. I have a picture of that somewhere. But I wasn't with my family. By 18, I wanted out. Badly. I wanted away from Berg. I wanted to start my life. I just couldn't make enough money to get out. So I stayed. It's so bizarre to me. I remember in 1994, my brother turned 30, and we tried to throw him a party, and he got angry and he wouldn't come downstairs to the party. I should have him on the show to talk about that. That was hysterical. I don't want to party. I'm not coming down. I was 22 at the time. Rachel and I we were planning our wedding at that point. Wedding replaced birthday. You just don't think about, your life is so busy from 14 to 29 that you just don't think about that kind of stuff. We had birthdays here and there. Rachel's a big party person. If I hadn't married Rachel, I probably wouldn't have ever celebrated a birthday again. But she loves planning parties, so I like to let her do that. I mean, it makes her happy, so that's a great thing. So she threw some fun parties for me in the late 90s. A lot of people from Knott's would come over and hang out. I once got a lap dance from a man, Yosef. He was the best lap dancer we'd ever seen. He was great. One of my best friends in the world. Runs his own beauty salon now in the Midwest. Really got his act together. I'm so proud of him. The big party came when I turned 30. We started doing Find Club, which is a scavenger hunt. We did it the week after 9/11. It was the first thing we did to feel normal after 9/11. Think about that. That was me turning 30. And we did Find Club, Find Club 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. All scavenger hunt, huge, massive events. But they're parties where it's not really about my birthday. It's just about getting together with friends, hanging out. It's not about presents. It's not about da-da-da-da-da. It's just, hey, we're all still alive. We're all still here. That in itself is worth celebrating. Find Club culminated in a game show where you didn't have to find objects. You had to find the answers in your brain. It's all in your head, I called it. Then I took a break, I got 3 kids. I got, party. Rachel loves to throw parties. But now that we have the show, it's more of just a way to get people, again, just to get people together. You never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to hang out with. Of all the crazy projects I've done, the podcast is the one that has brought more goodness into our lives than anything. And it's the people that we meet, the people that we've touched through the show. At age 47, do you have any wisdom, Jeff? No. Other than hold on to your friends. Hold on to your connections. Don't let the fact that you don't like the president end a friendship. Don't let the fact that you have different stupid political views. Who cares? Who frickin' cares? Right? It's not worth it. Friends are more important than anything in the world. The connections and the people and your family. I've always said the message of this show is, if you have something you want to say to somebody, you've got to let them know. Because you have every opportunity until one day you don't. And when you don't, you really don't. My father was gunned down in the 80s. Robber came in, took the money, and then shot him dead. I never knew him. And as I go back and look upon, I should say I'm writing 3 books, because the 3rd book is all about his letters to my mother, which are amazing. And I'm transcribing them all into a book. That's not really a book for other people, though. It's mostly for me and my kids. But I wonder everybody wants to know who the hell their father is, right? Isn't that everybody's story? The search for your father, the search for your parent. Who were they? Why were they? What did they do? What did they think? I know a lot about him, but I don't know about the later years. And the part that really bugs me, and the part that's bitter to me, is that my father was alive and could have taken me to see Star Wars. I would have given anything to have him pick me up and take me to see a Star Wars movie. Heck, he could have taken me to see Back to the Future. That's how long he lived. But he didn't. Never made the trip. Had plenty of money, plenty of opportunities, plenty of chances. They could have put me on a plane and I could have spent 2 weeks with the man. They didn't do it. Neither one of them, my mother nor my father, did it. They let outside interferences deny me that. And I know this sort of comes off as a little bit angry and bitter. I'm really not, though. I'm more disappointed. Isn't that the worst thing your mother ever said to you? I'm so disappointed. Oh, no, don't just get mad at me and smack me around. Don't say you're disappointed. Oh, if that's the choice you want to make, Jeff, I guess if that's what you want to do, I'm disappointed. Oh! Nobody knows how to put you on a guilt trip like your mother. Right? Nobody. But you don't know who your parents are. And if your parents are still alive, find out who they are. Take them out for a drink and just say, who are you? I don't get that. So that's what 91 Reasons was created for. So that eventually, when I am gone, my kids will have hours of who the hell I was. Why I was. What did I do? I mean, they've got more stories than I can count. We're nearing 365 episodes of this thing where they could listen to me for an hour a day for a year if they could stomach it. I'd give anything for that for my mom and dad. I don't remember, except maybe one time, seeing my mother and father in the same room. One time. I mean, imagine that. One time I was in the same room, the St. Elmo's Superette convenience store with my mother and father. Had no idea at the time the importance of... I mean, up until now, I didn't even think about it. Much less then, that would be the one time I would see them both together. I never thought about it that way. That's an epiphany right on the show. I was only in the room with them one time. Wow. Something to think about. Anyways. I told you this would be a weird show because I don't know where I'm going with it. I just know I want to talk about a couple of birthday parties. And speaking of birthday parties, we're having a birthday party this Friday, September 7th at 7 o'clock at Rockin' Brews on Beach Boulevard, right by Knott's Berry Farm. You can't miss it. It's the Giant Guitar. It's owned and run by Gene Simmons from Kiss. So if you want to come to my birthday and hang out, you don't have to bring a present. You just got to hang out. 7 o'clock, September 7th at Rockin' Brews on Beach Boulevard in Buena Park. You can't miss us. We're the most colorful family you've ever seen. We'll be there. I have to work all day, but I'll be there afterwards. 7 o'clock. So come hang out. Come hang out with the fools that you know. And we can see where it goes. Well, I'm going to turn 47 at the end of this next Monday. I turn 47. There's no manuals they give you. There's no classes you can take. There's no online course you can do to learn about growing old. I mean, I always thought that the people I was with that were older knew they were older and had some sort of wisdom button that gets turned on. And you realize that's such bullshit. That everybody is just winging it. I mean, that's both terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. But it also means that whatever you're doing is what you're doing, and the path you've taken is your path. And no one can tell you that you're right or wrong. It's up to you. And that's all I've ever done, was to stay on my path, wherever it took me. And today and next week, it'll take me to a place that I love hanging out with you. And that place is called 91 Reasons.
Thanks for listening to 91 Reasons. Please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Find us on Facebook. Is anyone even still listening?
Good night, future boy!